And welcome back to another episode. We got some really cool stuff going on tonight. We're getting a little bit more witchy here. Now, tonight's a little different. We got a couple of different teas we're going to talk about, and we're going to go right into some really cool magic stuff. So first, Mylinda's going to give you a little bit of background on some of the tea that we are drinking tonight.
Yes. So tonight I have Jasmine tea, which was actually requested by Nickery from Canada. He messaged me and said that he was drinking Jasmine tea and was looking up the benefits and wanted us to talk about it. So
I love it when we get participation like that. That is so cool. So thank you.
Absolutely. And it's really good for diabetes prevention, which was one of the things that he noted. In a study performed in Japan, people who consumed 6 or more cups of green tea saw a stunning 33% risk reduction of developing type 2 diabetes. And jasmine tea is considered a green tea. I think there's different forms, but this one specifically that I'm looking at, it's also good for better vision, bone health, and animal studies for bone health have suggested that green tea can encourage the formation of new bones. And in those animal studies, the bones showed greater mass, volume, and thickness.
Seriously.
Yeah,
Osteoporosis?
this is for any green tea. It has these properties as well.
Wow.
Weight loss. Researchers have found that green tea can help contribute to fat loss by increasing the body's metabolism. Heart health. Studies have found that people who regularly consumed at least 1 cup of green tea a day died at far lower rates from cardiovascular disease than those who consumed less than 1 cup per day.
So one
And
cup of tea. That's
yep,
it.
1 cup of tea, that's it. And also, it's good for better memory. So, in animal studies, again, green tea consumption by mice showed memory loss. Showed green tea consumption. I think it's cutting off. Let me try to turn it around. Sorry, we're live. Okay. That significantly slowed memory loss in the mice that consumed green tea. Other studies have also demonstrated that green tea was able to improve spatial cognition and learning ability when consumed regularly. So feed your kids green tea, people.
Seriously, I did not know that. I mean, you hear good properties on drinking tea. It does have its properties, but I didn't realize that it had that many.
It's also good for oral health, reduces stress and anxiety, boosts the immune system, because it is jasmine specifically, shifting over to jasmine tea. It is an antioxidant and has anti-inflammatory properties. And it also helps lower the risk of cancer. And it helps you sleep better. And if any of you have smelled the jasmine flower, it's very strong and fragrant. It's my husband's favorite flower. He loves jasmine. Used to grow around his grandmother's house when he was growing up, and his mom's. So it's sentimental to him. Now, the magical properties of jasmine. So some of these were really interesting, I thought. It is used for love, meditation, healing, relaxation, prophetic dreams, aura cleansing, money matters, aphrodisiac, and confidence. The element is water, and for planets, it has the moon. And it's also good for your crown chakra work, which I thought that was interesting. And then there's something that it says a dried jasmine flower bud, has the appearance of a sperm or seed. While holding your wish for fertility or new growth under a full moon, ignite the bud by fire and toss it into water. I thought that was now I'm not doing that. I'm done with children. But for those of you out there that would like that, I thought that was an interesting one.
That is
And
interesting because, I mean, when you think about it, you need the confidence with the aphrodisiac.
yes,
Yeah.
true. And some of the deities associated with Jasmine are Aphrodite, Ishtar, Vishnu, and Selene. Jasmine is a sensuous and mystical flower. It can draw spiritual love based on attraction to the soul. Jasmine attracts wealth as well and can be burned or carried to this effect. Also, its smoke is perfect for relaxation or preparing your mind for prophetic rituals, just like we said. Good for charging quartz crystals by putting them into a bowl of jasmine flowers. And it also helps to promote new innovative ideas. And it says you can use sachets or spells to attract a soulmate. Mix with lavender for an incredibly powerful dream pillow. And jasmine oil can also be used in ritual bath to heighten attractiveness and sexual experience.
That's really interesting. It's got a lot of magical properties.
It does.
Well, tonight we're doing tea leaf reading. Um, this is my little teacup. I am, now remember, you got to drink loose leaf. The leaves have to float in the water.
It's
So
better with loose leaf, yeah, but you
yeah,
can.
make sure I don't have any green leaves on my teeth when we're talking, okay? Because I'm trying to do this gracefully. Yeah, do not laugh.
Yeah. If
Um,
all you have is the bag, that's okay. You can still steep the bag for a few minutes and then just cut it open. You want to leave a little bit of water in there and swish it around and ask your question, put your energy in there. But it does typically work better with loose leaf just because it's not super fine. Um, and you're getting like the chunks. So sometimes for divinatory purposes, the loose leaf works better.
yes, and if you like to chew your tea, it, I am. The only loose leaf tea I have now, I used to have a lot of loose leaf teas, but I moved and I did my house cleaning, so I got rid of a lot of them. So I have, this is double milk oolong tea, loose. So what I did was I put it in my little cup and with my little teapot, because I have my little teapot, and um, under Mylinda's direction, I'm trying to swallow this without drinking half the leaves with me. There's a ton of leaves in here, so this is going to be interesting. Now, oolong is actually, it's interesting, it's not considered a white tea. It's usually considered by itself for magical purposes. We're just talking magic on this side. Um, the energy is feminine. The element is water. Now, I love this. The planets are Mars and the moon. Did
Mm,
anybody ever read that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus?
yes.
So even though it's feminine, the planet is Mars, the war planet. So
Right.
that is, you know, the season is autumn. The crystal is amethyst, and the color is purple and dark blue.
Mm.
So the magical purposes are love, serenity, reflection, divination, fortune telling, which goes in what we're doing tonight, and emotional balance. Now, it has a very simple love spell, or an attraction spell, I should say. You hold the bag before putting it in the water. If you have it, if it's the leaves, you have it in your little thing, and you visualize romantic energy in your life. Imagine your perfect partner. Think of as many details as you can intensely. Now, you're not thinking of a person. No, 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 because that's called binding. We don't do that. But you're thinking of the qualities. You want someone like me. I need someone with a good sense of humor. It's the only way to deal with me.
Exactly.
I need
Ditto.
someone who is mature but is also silly like me and will go out and dance in the rain. So there are certain qualities that we all look for in our partner.
Right.
And that's what it wants you to do. Just imagine those qualities very intensely. Like what is, and we used to do this when we were kids in school. You write down, you know, what you're looking for in a man, blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, whatever. So what you're doing now as a mature adult, you're writing down the qualities, and qualities are something that's unique to that person. So you're going to look for these qualities. You're not
Right.
thinking of a name, you're not thinking of a face, you're not thinking of anything but the qualities that you admire in a person.
Exactly.
And then think of as many details as you can intently. If you need to write them down, you can. Then drink your tea as usual. Do not imagine, and it says right here, do not imagine a person you know, as this is a form of, and they're saying black magic, but it says never force someone into loving you. You know. Now,
Right.
what I thought was interesting is after that, they had a whole list of different ads that you can add to your tea to give it more magical qualities. Like chamomile is healing, abundance, receptive energy. Rose hips is healing and good luck, that kind of thing. So even if you have a mix of tea, you can always add to that the correspondences that you're looking for. So this is already, if I was using this for psychic, we'll say divination, I might put some blue lotus petals in it
Right.
or add something like that. Now,
No,
I am almost finished. So you told me we're going to put it in another the the water,
yeah.
and you want me to take out as much as I can.
Yeah, so you drain out as much water, or during a reading, you would typically drink it. If you're reading for yourself,
Yeah,
you're
I
going
only
to,
have a little bit.
oh, yeah, yeah. But I'm just saying what the process is. So,
Do I need to take some of that out?
yeah, it's supposed to be a pinch.
Oh, you don't make tea with a pinch.
If
All
it's
right.
loose leaf they do, you just pinch it, put it in there.
You know, she tells me this after I make this and suffer sucking this stuff down. Okay.
So what you would generally do if you're doing a reading for yourself, you would be the one
Okay, I did.
setting the setting the intention. There you go. Setting the intention and asking the question. And if you're reading for someone else, you would have them drinking the tea and setting the intention and asking. And then you drain or you drink out the tea. You leave just a tiny bit of water left so that you can swirl it around while you ask your question or put your energy. And then it will look somewhat like that, that Pam is holding up. And then what you do is you look really deeply. It's almost like scrying, in my opinion. So you look at the very details, you turn the cup, you look and see what images appear to you. Like right
I
now,
see bats.
okay. Like right now, that if you turn it a little bit, no, the other way. Okay. To me, I see a man's face on the right hand, on the top right hand side. It almost looks like an old Edgar Allan Poe. Like I can
Oh,
see like
really?
hair and eyes and a nose
You're
and
right.
a
Almost like
mustache.
a Charlie Chaplin
Yes, yes. You see it?
up here.
Yep.
The
Do you see
hair,
it?
there's the eyes, there's the nose.
Yep.
Yes.
And like the mustache.
Right. And if you look below that, that looks a little bit like a bat.
It does. It does.
Bats are my totem animal. So that
Yes.
this is kind of cool.
Isn't
So
that cool?
what
See? And that's how it works. And then you can turn it and see like what else you see. And if there's tea leaves that wind up on the side,
yeah.
totally okay. It's part of the reading.
So if I turn it this way, what do you see?
That looks like a woman laughing to me. I see
Cool.
her hair at the top. If you turn
Yeah.
it back around, I see it looks like her hair at the top, and then I can see her eye, and it just looks like lips.
Yes, it does.
And like her body is at the bottom of the cup.
Okay, let's we that upside down is a
And
woman,
then
right
do it.
side up is a man. On the side doesn't look like I still see the man.
Yeah, he's just laying
I
down.
see the hair up here.
Yeah. So it's like he's laying sideways.
Yeah,
And
like he's
if
laying
you tilt
sideways.
it up so you can see like the side, turn it the other way. I think you had more. Yeah.
That
Yeah. And see what that might look like to
it
you.
looks like a witch's broom.
Yeah, it does. You know what it looks like to me? It looks like a telescope.
Yeah, telescope, witch's broom. Yeah.
So that's really how you do it. And there's different books out. So depending on how you want to read it, of course, to each his own. If you want to do it intuitively, like what does a telescope mean to you? What does Charlie Chaplin or Edgar Allan Poe mean? What does that feel like to you?
I lived in Baltimore for over, I'm going to say about 50 years. Edgar Allan Poe is buried in Baltimore.
Mm,
I did the Poe walk. The Telltale Heart. I've read all of Poe. Of course, you go to school in Baltimore, you're going to read Poe.
right.
You just have to. It's part of your curriculum.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that we saw what we saw because I'll tell Mylinda off camera what I was looking for. So maybe we'll let y'all in next week, but I'm not going to tell everybody in the world right now because it'd be too scary. But that was really, I mean, it's funny how when we turned it, we got the lady, and when we
Yeah.
turned it this way, and of course she's laughing. So
Right.
that's kind of
And then
neat.
but also, what do you know of Edgar Allan Poe? He was like dark and depressed and all this. So it's almost like yin and yang and balance.
It really is. And Poe does mean a lot to me since Baltimore is actually my adopted home. I was there
Right.
for so long. So Poe is very Baltimore. And that's kind
Yeah.
of neat. And I still have the accent. So, but that was kind of neat. I mean, I
Isn't
like
it?
that.
Yeah. And
And
then
I
here's
did drink almost all of it. What was in the cup was mainly, yeah,
yeah, just more of
I
that.
will learn
So, and I
better.
also wanted to share this for the audience. So, this is sort of another example that I found. So, and this is what it can look like as well. And it'll give different examples like this is, palm trees, and there's an axe right there, and, different things. And certain books you can find books that have like lists of symbols. Of course, you can find them online. It's similar to tarot where certain things will stand, certain symbols will stand for certain things, but it certainly is up to interpretation, of course. But for example, like it has it here in the article, what the different symbols are. So one of the things was a palm tree, which is a good omen, success in any undertaking. Single people learn of marriage. Another one was an anchor, which is a lucky symbol, success in business or in love. If it's blurred or indistinct, it's just the reverse. Um, Triangles, unexpected good fortune. So there's a lot of different things. And I also found a list of a few others. And another thing I wanted to point out there, you can buy now cups that have, like, this is a zodiac version. But you can buy them like this now, and they even have them with the symbols in the cup. Now, when you're doing a tea leaf reading, you cannot use a mug because it has nowhere is flat sides. So you want to use your like fancy, yeah, you can do that, or like the saucers, the cup and saucers, anything that's more open like this is going to be, sort of wide.
Okay, I'm going to ask you, is that maybe why the Chinese, this is part of a set, is that maybe why they're made like this so for the tea leaf reading?
Possibly. Possibly.
Because,
And I'm actually going to get in the history in just a moment. But here's another example that has the symbols on it. So, I mean, it's really interesting. And there's all sorts of books and things, like I said, that you can look for. Um, Now, going into, oh, and I was just going to talk about some of the symbolism. Like, and you can, of course, go, yeah, on Pinterest or wherever. But, there's all these symbols. There's many, many. Um, like if you see a horseshoe, of course, that's good luck. You might see,
it sounds like
some,
it's almost like dream divination where, if you
yeah,
dream something, it means this.
it's very similar to that. And like I said, to me, it's more, and I mean, I'll see what I see, but then how does it make me feel? It's more intuitive, like I do my tarot readings. So, it's really interesting. And so, just to talk about some of the information and the history. So, tea leaf reading is also known as tasseography. Um, it
Okay.
is Tassie is the French word. Let me see. I'm sorry, I'm trying something new, you guys. I'm going off of my iPad only this time instead of all of my papers. Okay. So I have like 5 things open, sorry. Yeah, so it's derived from, like, it's a French and a Greek word, and basically it's divination, tea divination. And some people would also do, instead of tea leaves, they would do coffee grinds, or they would do wine sediments. So anything that's going to be part that you can drink, but you can sort of have that left over.
Now, for the coffee grinds, that would have to be the old perk cups, old
Right.
perk pots that you would
Yeah.
perk, and the grounds always ended up in your coffee cups. So,
Yeah, and I'll show you an example actually. Oh, and I found it. So the terms tasseography or tasseomancy, tasseology, it's a divination or fortune telling method that interprets patterns in tea leaves, coffee grounds, or wine sediments. The terms derive from the French word tassi, meaning cup, which in turn derives from the Arabic loan word into French tassa, and then the Greek suffix, of course, graph writing. Ology is the study of, or mancy is divination. So tasseomancy followed the trade routes of tea and coffee and was practiced by
ah,
the Romani people. Western
Romney.
tasseography, yeah, Western tasseography can be linked to medieval European fortune tellers who developed their readings from splatters of wax, lead, and other molten substances. So even before the tea leaf, they were still doing similar things, with those type of.
That's
They have
interesting that they would include all of that into tea leaf reading.
Yes. And again, there's for the symbol, the cups with the symbols and the zodiac. Those are going to be fortune telling cups, is what you'll look up and find. But
Ah,
many people prefer a simple white cup for tea leaf reading. There are also traditions concerning the positional placement of the leaves in the cup, and some find it easier to work with already marked cups. Beginning in the late 19th century and continuing to the present, English and American potteries have produced specially decorated cup and saucer sets for the use of tea leaf readers. And like I said, there's also coffee reading. But what I wanted to touch on was a little bit of the history here. And so it's said to have its origins in Asia, the Middle East, and ancient Greece, with
hmm.
Middle Eastern cultures typically using coffee. However, modern tea leaf reading began in the 17th century when tea was introduced from China to Europe. And then it says, although loose leaf tea was initially a product for the upper class, once it became more readily available, rituals surrounding tea, like tea leaf reading, emerged. Tea leaf reading was thought to have developed because life was often discussed over a cup of tea. So I thought that was interesting.
That's kind of like when we were kids, all the neighborhood women would get together with their coffee. My father used to call it the hen house. They would
Yeah,
all gather and drink their coffee and talk about a therapy
exactly.
session, basically.
Yes, exactly.
That's
And then
pretty
it's the, yeah, people realized that they could see their discussions reflected in their tea leaves, much like finding shapes in clouds in the sky. The Romani people continued to spread tea leaf readings throughout Europe, even going door to door to offer tea leaf reading services.
awesome.
By the mid 1800s, the Romani were regularly incorporated into European tea culture, with tea parlors and tea rooms inviting them in to offer tea leaf readings to guests. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then
Oh,
in the US, tea parlors opened in the 1800s, with tea becoming more and more popular over the years. After World War I, women in the US even began opening their own tea parlors. They would serve light snacks, offering to read tea leaves after drinking to further increase the experience of community. From this, the art of tea leaf reading was often passed down between women from generation to generation. Although there is thought to be a level of clairvoyance involved in tea leaf reading, it is something you can do at home. Um, and then it says typically the tea leaf reading is done with black loose leaf tea drunk out of a light colored cup in order to see the tea leaves more clearly. And the person having their fortune read is often asked to think of a question that they would like answered as they drink the tea. And we went over about over that. And tea leaves are usually interpreted by reading from the rim inwards, with the events near the outside thought to depict what is going to happen first, and symbols near the center of the mug showing what is going to happen in the distant future.
I'm
So
looking
that's another way.
at
Yeah,
mine.
so that's another way you can do it. And then,
It's interesting. They're stuck on there now because it's dried pretty much.
yeah,
It's really interesting when you look at it because I'm seeing all sorts of things in it.
it's interesting.
Does this look like an anchor or like a rosebud?
I was just looking at that. To me, it looks like one of those fairy mushrooms. The ankle that I'm
In
looking
my
at,
tea. Now that might be tea I would drink.
right? I
Really.
know.
I have never done this before. This is my first time, guys. So this was
Yeah,
fun for me. I mean,
yeah,
it was kind of cool.
it is
Um,
cool.
I didn't put anything in this except water and tea. I didn't add any honey or anything to make it stick or anything like that. So
Yep.
that's why I was grimacing while I was drinking it. It
And if you leave too much water in there, you'll know, and just take a little bit more. And you just want to have just a tiny bit, just enough for it to
just
swirl the bottom of
swirl.
the, and then it'll, yeah, and
But
then
that's
it'll.
pretty cool. I mean, they're dried and they're pretty good now, so you can actually see it. To me, I swear this looks like a witch on a broom, and there's like bats or something following her.
Oh yeah, I do. I do see that now,
Could- Um,
especially with the thing behind, behind.
that's kind of neat. So this is my first time, so I think it's pretty cool. I've never done this before. I keep looking at the cup because it's just fascinating to me.
It is cool.
See, it is like looking at the clouds and seeing, shapes in the clouds. But yeah, that is, and it's like this would be a great thing to do with kids.
I know,
Seriously,
and
because they got
and
better
also,
imaginations than we've got.
oh yeah, exactly. Well, and like I said, the analogy of looking at the shapes of the clouds really helps you. But you see how easy your first time you have zero experience. I'm just talking you through it, and you see, you
I
know,
saw all these things in it, and it's
it's
interesting.
neat.
So I will meet an Edgar Allan Poe. I will laugh, and I'm a witch on a broom.
There
So
you go.
hey, guys, can you get any better than that? Okay.
And you're gonna be looking at the stars through a telescope.
Stars to the telescope. Yeah, and I'm going to be doing shrooms because there's
Yeah.
my shroom right there. So
Well, the shrooms are why you're riding on the broom, so
there you go. See,
it's propelling you.
ties in. I mean,
It
but
all
this is
ties
really cool. I've never done this before. I've heard of it. I've seen it in movies like everybody else.
right.
Of course, the Romany are great actresses when they do it. They put a lot of, it's, the typical gypsy
Gypsy, right?
reader kind of thing, they do it. But this is really interesting. I think it's pretty awesome myself.
And also, if you want to get some more, like just a few more tidbits here. So there's a book called Reading Tea Leaves by a Highland seer, and it's said to be the oldest book on the subject in English. Written in the 18th century, it offered sets of symbols to interpret tea leaf patterns. The book talks about generations of Scottish spaewives, which is derived from the Norse spa, meaning prophecy, peering into their teacups to tell things to come. British historian Alec Gill, who has documented superstitions in Hull, and I think that's in Canada, I'm not sure. In the northeast of England, sorry, writes that in the early 1800s, a lady of the manor tossed the cups after breakfast and read fortunes for her servants. Gill also remembers his own experience. Tossing the cup involves spinning it anti-clockwise in the left hand 3 times. With the dregs swirling around, the dregs were flicked upside down into a saucer. So this is another way you can do it, thus getting rid of the remaining liquid. The fortune teller, usually a local wise woman in the village or terrace, then set about divining what the talking tea leaves had to say. As a young boy in the 1950s, I remember my mother having done this by our regular, having this done by our regular dressmaker when we called to collect some items. The Victorian era is when tea leaf reading really had its heyday. Victorians were fascinated not only by the occult, but by the idea of self-analysis brought on by the work of Sigmund Freud and Joseph Breuer during this time.
But also,
And then, yep, and then it talks more about how the pottery business really came into play. When the tea bag was invented around 1908, the popularity of tasseomancy began to dwindle. Tea leaf bags get sludgy. So that's what we're kind of saying. The tea bags kind of, you could cut it open, but it's not the same. But loose leaf tea is making a comeback, not only for drinking, but in tea leaf reading too. So that was interesting, I thought. And this was also just going back a little bit further. When tea first made its way into Britain from China in the mid 17th century, it was an aristocratic beverage, but as trade fueled falling prices, the general population began drinking it. Already culturally superstitious, lower classes were quick to use tea leaves instead of some of their cumbersome and often dangerous methods of divination, and like we talked about earlier, the use of molten metal, hot wax, and even entrails of animals.
oh, just what I want to read before I sit down to dinner.
I know.
Yeah.
So, yay, tea leaves, so we don't have to read, animal
Entrails. Yes, that
entrails.
would be just the thing to do right before you sit down.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty cool. I mean, the first time we got some, I wasn't sure we were going to get anything, to be really honest with you. I've seen this done like everybody else in the movies,
Right.
and I thought, oh, I'm going to get some kind of, and of course, Harry Potter comes to mind. I'm sorry. You know, when she looks in the tea leaves and,
Yeah.
oh, I was
I know.
afraid you were going to do that because I was very cautious showing you what I had.
Yeah, I know. Well, and also just a few things to go over. So when you're doing the tea leaf, and Pam will tell you, anytime you do a ritual, you would really want to make sure you cleanse your space and that you're clearing the energy. There's also now usually they want you to swirl the cup counterclockwise. Um, I personally have never seen a difference. It's done the same either way. Um, so, some things that you want to try to do or remember to do, some good tips before you start the process of the ritual, is to try to clear your mind of any thoughts. Trust your first impressions, just like we talked about last week with the tarot. When you're doing things with intuition, it's the first thing that comes to your mind. Even if the querent doesn't, thinks it's crap, it's coming to you for a reason. Do not second guess yourself. Let the process guide you. Do not rush the process. Let it come naturally. Calmly examine the shapes of the tea leaves and how it's distributed. Do not try to force an answer. Observe the tea leaves in depth and let the answer naturally appear to you. When I first started doing the tea leaf readings, I was a little frustrated because I'm like, well, I'm not really seeing anything. And that's why I said earlier, in my opinion, tea leaf is like in this case, it didn't take us that long to really see something, but sometimes it can. So in those cases, it's kind of like scrying because you really have to really look and really hone in for it to pop. Um, do not read leaves in a time bound manner. So make sure that you're, leaving yourself some time. If you do something like a reading for someone else and you have an appointment, just give yourself extra time because you will have those times where they're a little bit harder to read.
Right.
Um, And then it talks a little bit about the ritual and preparation. It has, it also says the symbols in the cup, and it talked about it a little bit earlier, but this goes into a little bit more detail. The symbols in the cup which appear near the handle stand a greater chance to be fulfilled. The rim of the cup denotes the present, the side indicates the medium term, and the bottom indicates the distant future. Um,
So
so
it's
I
kind
think,
of like you read in towards, you go from the outside in kind of thing. Start
yes,
here and then work your way in. Okay.
you can, or like how I just did, like, to me, I just did like a general reading of what all the different things
Yeah,
were.
but I want to show everybody again. This was pretty cool. It was different. Um, Now, I don't know if your books say anything, but I mean, I didn't make this as though I was going to drink it. Seriously. I mean, I heated my water, I poured it in, I steeped it, but I didn't put any sugar or any honey or any other flavorings or anything else in it except for the oolong. So, does it make a difference? Like if I put honey in it, or I guess the leaves are going to hit differently.
It may. There's not a whole lot. When I was doing the research, there wasn't a whole lot that talked about that. Typically, if you can, you just want to do the
Like I
tea leaf
did.
on the
Just
right. But as long as it's dissolving, it really shouldn't be an issue.
now,
Um,
I saw where they did, I can do this now, it's dry, where they did do this and they twisted it and then it was, oh, there's like a couple of fell out,
yeah.
two little black things, but they did do that and they read it.
You
But
can do that. Yes, you can do that too. So you can either do the swirl cup method, or you could do where you've drank the tea and then you're dumping it on the saucer. Because again, you're only wanting to use a pinch if you, and there's
don't do
no,
what I did.
yeah, but no, there's no harm if you've done it, if you've done too much to,
This is where we
don't
had to pull it out.
don't pay attention to what you're taking away, but just take something away and then examine it after that.
Yeah, well, that's what we did. There was only a little
Yeah,
bit of
and that's
fluid
what we
left.
did tonight, and look what we got.
Yeah, I was surprised that it came together really quick. Like
Mm-hmm.
we immediately looked in and saw things, and once you point it
Yeah.
out, then you start seeing all sorts of stuff in there. That's really interesting. So it is a big deal in England and over in the UK, and touched on
Yes.
my Scottish side there for a second. Um, it's it's really interesting. Now you would think the way the English deal with their tea that they've been drinking tea since the beginning of time.
Right.
So that was interesting to me to find out that they've only been drinking tea since the 1700s. That's not that long.
Yeah. I know. 17th century, so 1600. Yeah, when it
1600s, but
came from China.
still,
China. I know. I know.
I thought they were drinking tea from day one. We're in England.
They have they have
Braveheart, we're drinking tea.
right. They have tea time, but it's really, so what they're not telling us is that they're really doing tea leaf readings every day and eating their biscuits and their
Well, I do know that certain people do not do tea bags. It's like, no, don't
no.
ever use a tea bag.
Well, especially now with the tea balls and
We have
everything.
all the tea bags. I got to get that one tea ball.
Oh my.
It was disgusting, but it's adorable.
It was disgusting. I don't know if I could bring myself to. Yeah, I could.
Me, in a heartbeat, I take it to work and use it.
I'm talking about me.
Me. But I do know that with the
Kim
balls,
will
and
eventually buy it, so you guys will see eventually.
I don't know if we can put it on air. Well, I'm sure we can.
Of
Oops.
course you can.
We'll find out afterwards when I get yelled at. But a lot of like teapots like this one have that metal mesh that go in it for the
Yes.
loose tea. I used to drink a lot of loose tea that way because I have a lot of the little mesh balls, and I have a
Hmm.
couple of little teapots, and they all have the inserts in them so that it,
Yeah.
it keeps out most of the chewable part of the tea. Yeah. Well, it's
Well, but that's another thing you can do. You can get a pinch of the loose leaf and the tea ball, let it steep, And then when you dump out some of your water or drink some of your tea, and then dump it in the little, leave that tiny bit of water, and then swirl it or dump it in the sauce. Or you could do it
Yeah.
that way.
Um, I will let you know that if you're going to do it, since I literally did it here, I started my tea before we started the show because I wasn't sure what I was doing. You do need to let it settle. Once you pour the water in on the loose tea, it all floats to the top. And I was trying to drink it with it floated to the top. Okay, let me tell you, it's like trying to drink a swamp.
It was pretty funny before we started.
I'm glad we did. I feel like I got tea leaves all over my teeth, but it
Yeah,
was trying to drink it, and I'm like, man, I need to put a strainer over top of this so I can
I
actually get
know.
liquid out of it. But I like the idea of doing in the ball and then opening the ball and dumping it in and swirling it around because seriously, that was some serious chewing I was doing. I was starting to feel like a vegan, you know? Uh,
You started feeling like you're back on the farm,
yeah, I'm chomping on the hay. Um,
right?
but I guess, you can buy I buy. There's a lot of different markets out there for tea.
There is.
For me, it needs to be organic if I'm going to buy it, just because, and it needs to be
And
harvested
they have,
correctly.
yeah, and now, like I said, with the tea, the loose leaf tea's coming back, and it's becoming more popular, so a lot more easier. You can go into so many, like even grocery stores, and they'll
Right.
have the loose leaf tea now.
And there are different ones on the internet. I used to order my teas because they had blends that I couldn't find anywhere else that were like, one of
Yeah,
them was like a creamsicle.
there
It was
was one
hard,
from
creamy. Oh my gosh, it was so good.
there was one from Tivana. I'll never forget. It was like in the mall,
Hmm.
and it was something like pineapple something. Oh my gosh, it was amazing. And it was like I think it was a green tea or like a oolong. Oh, it was so yummy.
I used to like it from, it's called the Tea Spot. And they
Mm,
were organic. And the woman who started it had cancer and drank enough tea that it helped her get through. It's not a cure. Let me preface
no,
that. It is
yeah,
not a cure. But the antioxidants and all the good stuff that was in it helped her body get through what she had to go through. And
right,
her teas are all organic and they're all, reasonably harvested. There's a lot to go with that. So
right.
um, the best thing I would say, just start drinking tea.
Hmm.
There's
Like I
enough
said,
out there.
and also like coffee is a thing, so you can look up more about the coffee too because I don't know about wine sediments.
Wine sediments occur, and I used to make wine and honey mead, so I know a lot about it. That is at the end when you make
Right. When you have
uh,
this.
a thing. It's 35 bottles, between 32 and 35 bottles, because it's 5 gallons is usually what
Right.
you make. And the very end, because you put all this stuff in there and it ferments, then you
Hmm.
put it to another bottle, and then you go back again, and then you fill up your bottles. There is the last, I don't know, I would say the last 2 or 3 bottles. You really
Hmm.
got to be careful not to get the sediment in. That's the dregs, and that's
Ah,
what you really don't want because that's the stuff it's going to be very, very harsh. It's going to be a bitter, and it's not. That's usually if you use cooking sherry,
hmm.
that's usually what it was. It's the dregs.
Okay.
Okay, so it's
Well,
not the
now you can save them for your divination.
zester. But I know when I used to make it, there would be always some. It's you can never find that in wine that you purchase because it
Right.
has to be pasteurized and all that stuff. So if you make your own, it's the last little bit that's in the bottom of your big 5 gallon drum that you're dipping out of. But when you get close to it, the last 3 or 4 bottles that you bottle are going to
Mhm.
have sediment in it. You can't help it. And when they sit, you'll see the sediment sit at the bottom. And
Mm.
my kids, well, when they were older, obviously, they pop a bottle of especially the honey mead. My son was like, I'm chewing your mead again, mother, because he would always, it never failed. I always put those bottles on the bottom
Hmm.
because they were sediment and it's a stronger taste.
Right.
So if you're not good with the wine that you're drinking, a stronger taste is not going to help you. So a lot of times I would put cheesecloth over top of the bottle and pour it out so you wouldn't end up with, the sediment in it. But now I know what to do with that sediment. But of course, it's like, you can make ice cubes out of wine, leftover wine. I never knew that because I never had any leftover wine. So I never knew you could do something with leftover wine.
Jay. Oh, that's funny.
Open a bottle, you have to drink the bottle. That was
right. But so, like I said, if there's any sort of grinds or anything, I mean, you can pretty much do the tea leaf reading. So I thought that was really interesting, and I'm glad that we did that.
I like the coffee aspect too. With the K cups and all, you really can't do it. But the old perk coffee pots, you always, especially towards the end of the pot, you always had those little bit of grinds, even on a filter, like a Mr. Coffee with a filter in it. You still end up, but the K cups are really good about not having any of that in because of the way it's processed.
Right. Exactly.
You have to go back to the old filter or to the one you put on the stove and, you perk it through.
Yeah.
Shows you how old I am.
But I'm glad we talked about tea leaf reading, and you guys got a treat because Pam did her very first one, unedited, not
Yeah, it wasn't scripted at all, except for the little bit that you didn't see before we started the show when I was getting the tea leaves out of my teeth. That was not for consumption, trust me. But yeah, give it a try. I mean, this would be something great to do with the kids. A rainy day or something, and it's, have a little bit of tea and crackers and then do the readings. I mean, the kids would get a heck of a kick out of that.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun. But yeah, so I'm glad we talked about the tea leaf reading because that was fun. And we did have a winner. We do have a winner.
We have a winner
for last week's giveaway, which if you weren't with us or couldn't tune in, last week's keyword was tarot because that was the theme of the show. And we do have LJ Davis from Texas that won.
Oh, Texas.
So, yes. So you will be getting a tea time mug shipped to you. Congratulations.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and you guys, all you have to do to join the giveaway is just go to the YouTube channel, Tea Time with Mother and Crone, Thyme, Thyme, like the herb, and just subscribe and then click the little bell button so you get notifications. And you get a perk because you can watch us live on Wednesday or Thursday nights, depending on our schedule that week. While we're doing it right now on YouTube before everyone else gets to see it on Sunday on Facebook. So it's kind of like a sneak peek.
And don't forget, this week's word is
tea leaves.
There you go. That's a 2-word. Tea leaves. Yeah. So remember that for next week. It's tea leaves. So get on there right now, type it in really fast. And if we have more than one person, then we will always, as usual, make sure. And a special shout out to Reverend Laurie Denman, because we're going to be hand delivering your mug to you. So you will get to see your mug in person with me as I come down again. But try the tea leaf reading. Try some of this stuff. Like the gentleman that offered the jasmine tea. That was interesting. I didn't know all that about jasmine tea.
I know. And so I thought that was really interesting. And also, really quickly, so in order to send, what you need to do is email us the keyword of the week to teatimemc@gmail.com. Again, THYME. And then just send the keyword. You can include your mailing address if you'd like, or you can wait until we tell you that you're the winner. And we will always announce it first, and then we'll send you a little email in case you don't catch it, so you know. But yeah, tea leaves, and we always announce the winner on the next week's show. So, and like Pam said, if there's more than one person, then we put it in a little spinny wheel to randomly draw. So
don't forget, that's something cool to do too. So our next little thing that we're going to talk about is runes. Now, runes are interesting. They're Germanic. Let's get that out there right now. So please forgive us for all the mispronunciations I'm going to have. German is not one of my languages that I speak, so I am terrible at it.
Nor mine, and that's my ancestry, but 1 through 20 is all I got.
Yeah,
that's all I could retain from what my Oma taught me. I'm like, okay, Oma, 1 through 20, I got that. Go ahead.
it's Germanic language is a guttural language like Hebrew and Gaelic, so it's a little different if you're used to the Latin languages. So please forgive us for all of our mispronunciations to start with. There are many books on this subject, but I guess kind of the basic book is this one. This is the one that's been around for a while. My copies, I always tell her I feel so bad when I show my books because they're all beat up, but I use them.
That just
So
means you've been loved, right?
they are very much loved. This book, oh my gosh, this is an older book. My pages are actually yellow in this book, my edges. This is a Llewellyn publication. This is 1961.
Nice.
Okay, copyright. So it's been around for a while. It is not the most detailed book. It doesn't go in, but it's the most readable book, and it puts it simply.
Yes.
So it gives you a little bit to go on, especially if you're just learning. Now, runes can come in all different things. If you notice on the front, they're little wood circles, like you take a limb and chop it up, and then you wood burn it. That is one form of runes. I know when I used to have my temple, we used to do crafts in my temple. Crafts to me are an easy way to learn anything because if you're doing it with your hands, you're seeing it, you're hearing it, you're touching it. Those are the three ways you learn. And you learn if you're doing one thing three ways, you're going to pick up something. Usually,
Right.
Usually, I say that usually. You can purchase your runes. Making any magical source is better if you can make
Yeah.
it yourself because you imbue it with all of your energy and your magic. I have my favorite ones are my Apache tears. Apache tears is a type of rock. It's a black rock, and they have put the runes. I'm trying to get it where my light doesn't catch it, and they are on here. Now, if you want to do something, of course, I pick up the blank one. Duh.
I just looked it up. That was the first one that I saw.
Um,
Look at
and
that.
there you
That's
go.
the first one
And
open up
that's
to
what I
is the
had that
blank one.
I'm sitting here turning it and turning it and turning it, and it's like there's nothing on it. If you want, I used to, like I said, I love to make, and I had some children in my group back in the day, so we would make ours. So you can purchase flat river rocks, or you can go out and find them. If you find rocks that are somewhat about the same size, and a little flat, and the reason I say flat is it makes them so much easier to write on. So what
Yeah.
you're going to do, the easiest way to do these is you buy nail polish. You buy a color that's going to show up on your rock. So you're not going to want red. If you can get a white or an orange or a neon color, you're going to get a very thin brush, like an eyeliner brush, very, very thin, so that you can put the symbol on it. And then you're going to take your clear and you're going to cover it with your clear. And what that clear does is it doesn't let the other chip off so quickly.
Right.
The clear is a really good cover for it. You pick them up and you put them in your little thing. Now, this is a great thing to do with children because it is a craft. They're learning as they write the letters, and this book has excellent pictures for the letters. Let me see if I can find a page with there we go. And oops, those are the breeds. Okay, let's find something better than here we go. It has beautiful illustrations that are very clear. So even a
Yes.
small child can look at this and be able to do this on one of their little stones. So the object is you take them out, you go for a walk, you find your flat stones. Now, if you get light colored stones, then you can use darker nail polish. So you want to
Right.
get the contrast. And you pick up your stones, you pick up however many you're going to make. Now, if you're going to make a whole set of runes, you got to remember how many runes there are.
Right.
So you want to go through your book, make sure you have enough runes, enough rocks, and then you're going to sit down with the kids after you go and pick up the rocks. And I mean, picking up the rocks and deciding what rocks you're going to use, what ones you're not going to use, what you're going to toss. I mean, you can use all sorts of things. If you don't have that, you can actually use popsicle sticks. In the front, she has popsicle sticks if you want to use those. Again, the circle, which is if you get wood and can chop it up into make little circles. stones, or you can actually just make them out of paper. But
Yeah.
this gives you, I like crafts better. So going out into the nature, picking up the rocks, now you put so much energy into that. So you're taking all of this with you. And
Well,
then
and
you start making
also,
it.
yeah, and also when you're going out and you're walking around in nature and you find the rocks, it's, similar to if you go into a metaphysical shop and you look at crystal, what calls to you. So that putting your energy in it and things like that, it makes it more
And
special
it
and
can be
honestly more powerful.
more powerful, and it also makes it a family time activity. Now, you're trying to
Yeah.
teach your children your spiritual path, and the easiest way to do that is to teach it on their level. So if you're making a craft and they're making runes for divination purposes, then you let them start divining with them. So what
Yeah.
better way than to go out, have a nice little walk in nature, pick up your rocks that you're going to use, your stones. Riverbeds usually have flat rocks. If you have a little creek or something, a lot of driveways, like I have a gravel driveway in Florida, and all my rocks are pretty smooth. Or, if you have to, you can go to Michael's or Hobby Lobby or any one of the craft stores and pick up, a bag of river rocks, and
Right.
you've got your rocks. I like to go out into nature and get them just because it means so much more because you're picking out the ones you want.
Right. I
And
feel the same
nature,
way. I do that with the kids. Hmm.
yeah, and nature's providing it. Um,
Yeah.
you can turn this into a two-time craft where you go out and you pick up the rocks, and then when you have a rainy day or a day where the kids can't go out or they're absolutely driving you crazy, which is 90% of the time, you can sit down with this craft and give them something to do. And
Yeah.
you're not just having a craft, you're teaching your spiritual life. So, I
Yes.
mean, that's a big thing. So you're sharing
Honestly,
that.
yeah, and honestly, these runes that you see in these books, they traditionally go off of the Elder Futhark alphabet, which is like a Norse Scandinavian alphabet. And honestly, it's not hard for children to learn. I taught myself the Elder Futhark alphabet, and when I was a teenager or preteen or both, I wrote in my diary an Elder Futhark so
They
that
will
no one
tell
else.
you if you're going to write a spell, to write it in another language or another alphabet than the one you're familiar with.
And that makes sense because how many times do you see in a horror movie where everything is in Latin?
Exactly. And what that does is, and this is true, you have to focus and concentrate. Even if you use Theban, you are still focusing and concentrating on getting that letter, the one letter, correct. If you're
Yeah.
doing a word, you focused on each letter that you have written down. You put energy into each letter. It's not like you're writing, you're
I
actually
still have to,
focused.
yeah, and it's sort of like automatic writing. And for those of you that have never done or experienced that, we'll talk about that in a later show. But yeah, it's not really hard at all for the elder. And Theban, that's a bit more
Yes,
complex.
that's that is a complex one. I've used Theban
They're
more
so
than I've used it.
similar. They're
Yes,
so similar.
and that's what makes you have to concentrate because you have to remember what letter you're using, how many humps and how many loops you
Right.
got to make.
And that's why I'm like, my ass would be like, was it one loops or two or one humps or two humps?
Yeah,
I could
it makes
never.
it tougher. I can never. I'm
I'll
not
start
really good
second
at it.
guessing myself, and I'm like, nope, can't do it.
But if you get a book, like I said, I recommend this one only because it's been around for a very long time.
Yeah.
It's a primer. I mean, if you really want to get into it, there are hundreds of books. I will tell you
And
that now.
I think my stepmom even got this for me, but this was like in a thrift store. But I mean, like, they're all over, like fortune telling by runes,
Right.
and I mean, you can go online on Amazon, look at
Well,
the reviews.
the
There
one
are
nice
people out
thing
there.
about this one, it has the alphabet in the back and how it
Yeah,
the
yes,
correspond.
it is.
It's
Yes.
very simply written, and I really like the fact that when I would teach, this is the book I would use because it actually even shows you how to make your pouch. in here.
And then it also shows you bind runes, which it goes into more about bind runes and how, prosperity or protect possessions or, good luck. So it has a lot of really good, yeah. Oh my gosh, memories. That is what my diary looks like.
Yes.
Oh,
And it also has the different, just like tarot, you pull runes. And you can
mhm.
pull the rune, and they have the lays that you can do. So, I mean, this book, this is your primer. This is your beginning book.
Not only that, but if you go even further past the alphabet, it has like easy rune references. So this is like victory, health. It gives you the different symbols, all the different symbols. Then it goes into colors and the different color meanings, which is not even related to the rune itself unless you make the runes the different colors. But it also talks about the four quarters, what elements. I mean, it goes into some pretty good. It has the days of the week and what the god and goddesses, of course, in this case, they would be Norse pantheon, and what they work for.
And
They
if you
all,
want to go further, it's going to give you a list of books to read in the back that you can
yes,
go beyond.
it's really a great beginner's book. It even goes over magical properties of the trees, which is, if you know Norse and Celtic, that's a thing.
And of
Um,
course, they're from Odin.
yes, they are.
So this is Odin's gift to us.
Hmm.
Um, I find them fascinating. I am not. I've done divination with them. I will tell you, I'm still like a beginner level one.
I'm
I
a
don't do
totally
much with
beginner.
it. But what I do is when I teach it, we all make runes, and
Yes,
that's part of how I teach runes. Is that you will sit there and you will make runes because you are focused on each rune at that time, and it makes so much more sense to you
it
because
really.
as you're doing it, you're reading about it. You do your, and I know I'm going to say it's wrong, Bjork. You're looking at it, you read
Okay.
about it, and
The
then you
same.
do it, and you have the symbol. So you've just put so much energy into that
Well,
symbol, and it's really important.
anything that you make, like for example, I mean, not to get off topic, but this is like a rattle that I made in a shaman making. I drew this. I drew this because barn owl is my totem, and I put like I'm an Aquarius, so I put the Aquarius symbol, and then I have hidden in here like at the time I didn't have Fiona, so I have like H for Haley, my daughter, hidden in all these different things, and it's the energy. I mean, I even have some of her baby teeth in here.
So now
I
that
mean,
we
if
went,
that's not a witch for you, I don't know what
I know.
is.
I'm surprised you don't have a lock of hair in it. Um,
That's my other box.
that's your other box. But
And my
these are
cat.
fun things to do, and this is a way, and you know, this is a way to teach your children something.
Mhm.
This is important. You're teaching, even if you don't know it, that book will walk you through it. And
It's
what better way to learn than with your kids?
Yeah, you
So,
learn together, you have fun.
right, and
Like I
it,
said, I'm not as familiar. I actually don't even have my own rune set yet, but I am, and I think I talked about it on a previous show. I'm really wanting to get more in touch with my Norse ancestry, my Norse Germanic, because we are very, very, very German. Um, and so I want to start learning that. And because I do love the Elder Futhark alphabet so much, because I have that connection and how I sort of, taught myself just sitting at the mall reading books. But so rune magic is something I'm really excited. I don't have a ton of experience. So, oh, and also, what other stones did you have?
okay, this is, I was out in a little tiny, tiny store outside of Annapolis, Maryland, little tiny place, and I found crone stones. And they're interesting. They are white rocks, they're white stones, but they have these symbols on them, very much similar to runes. And they have the book, so you have to look up the symbols. There are like over 50 of them. You can do it just like you can do a regular spread, but each one of the symbols has a meaning, and they're kind of set in groups. You have activists, you have conformity, you have journeys, communication. This one, and this is the easiest way to do it. This is, oh my goodness, of all stones, Stubborn rudder. Okay, I'm a Taurus, so that really speaks to me.
Really, really, really.
Age 30, yes. It speaks to me more than I want to realize because I really am. I used to say I'm not stubborn, I'm just very persistent. I'm stubborn. And
Hey,
this
that's
is,
okay. My mom's birthday was 2 days ago. Happy birthday, Mom. Well, 2 days ago right now, but she's a Taurus, so
it's like it says this the stubborn rudder is a person who is unwilling to change or move in a new direction. The stubborn rudder is stuck in the old routine. All change can be difficult, but it goes easier if it's self-initiated. Perhaps you should do some volunteer work or something that pushes you to reach outside yourself. At any rate, take some baby steps to give birth to yourself again. The stubborn rudder might be bound by her fears or anger so that she is frozen in panic, unable to move. The stubborn rudder does not want to change, but is frustrated with the way things are. The discussion question is, what does freedom feel like?
oh, I like the discussion question.
Yes,
And
each
it
one
sounds
has.
just like tarot. It slaps you in the face,
Unfortunate.
holds no
Most people get
just
these images or get these
very,
little
very
things that they don't understand and it needs translation. Goddess hits me with a 2x4 and gives me this in your face. Okay,
right.
Pam? All right. So I
Can't get any
never get
more obvious than that.
no, I mean, take the 2x4. It's a little bit easier to my head. But they're called Crone stones, the speaker communication. That was the other one I pulled. I pulled three of them. So this
Okay.
is communication. And like I said, I've only played with these a little bit. I just happened to see them and it was like, wow, that looks really different. This is called The Bird is the Speaker. She reveals her intentions with a light melody, a pleasant tone. Maybe she's representing a group and taking on the role of a leader. Or perhaps she is speaking her mind, singing her own song. She is the Eastern Indian goddess Saravasti, and her name means flowing one. Her persona may have been a contributing element in the character of the biblical Sarah. Saravasti has a maiden aspect, Bach, V-A-C-H, which means feminine voice.
Hmm.
She is the goddess of eloquence, pouring forth words like a flowing river. According to Indian lore, she invented all the arts and sciences. She invented writing so that the songs she inspired would be recorded. She is said to be the mother of the sacred texts, the Vedas. When you pull this stone in a reading, ask yourself, is your voice being heard? How will you share your voice with the world? Through art, writing, song? Bach is asking you to speak to her on her behalf. Express yourself in some way to the world. Let your voice pour forth like a flowing river, timeless and challenging. And the discussion question was, what is your artistic voice and how have you used it?
Oh,
Now that's
I
interesting for the
like
show.
I know. That's what I was thinking about.
So we have the stubborn one and we have the voice.
Yeah,
So
that's really cool.
that's really interesting, and they're thoughtful. I've never seen them anywhere else, to be honest with you. I have looked other places. It was just happenstance. We walked into a little store, and it was a little new age store, is basically what it was said. And of course,
Right.
I'm walking through, and I'm being nosy, touching and everything, like I always do. And sure enough, I came across these. I saw the name. I thought, oh my gosh, isn't that cute?
Yeah.
Um, and I picked them up. So the last one I have, it's called the third duality set is teaching stone.
Makes perfect sense.
Again, the faces are both left blank, and I'm going to try and show the best I can in my little camera. They're
Oh,
left blank, so that it shows ego is removed.
nice.
To open oneself to the teaching experience, teacher must be learner and learner must be teacher. A sort of shape shifting must occur. The Egyptian Isis, known as the oldest of the old, Lady of the Word of Power, and the one countless names, is one of the most multifaceted goddesses surviving in contemporary worship. So it goes on to say that Isis is the great teacher and learner for women. The discussion, it says, when you pull the teaching stone, there's an indication that your ability to be multidimensional is needed. Expand your role and allow others to absorb your old roles. And the question, how are you teaching others? Is the role limited? Are you able to let others possess and process knowledge which you have given to them so they may follow new direction?
Makes
Now,
total sense.
the 3 stones that we pulled is teaching, voice, and stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think about it, that's basically our show.
Yeah.
We voice constantly. We're stubborn because we make sure we do it every week.
Yeah.
And it's a teaching.
Absolutely.
So that was the 3 stones. I was
We got
sitting.
tea time reading.
I mean, we can't do any better than that. There are like 50 stones in here. They came in a nice little bag. And I know we're going to get tons of questions on this one. So I'm going to try it. They're made by Carol Lee Campbell. And this was copywritten in 2005. And I think I got them like in 2006. So they were right on the market. And in the back, it's got, all kinds of little things on it. And of course, Crone Chronicles, fascinating and all that. Sage Woman magazine did a little blurb for them. So they're very simple.
Yeah.
And this is what I was going to say. This is a teaching device. You can make your own stones mean what you want them to mean.
Exactly.
So get your teacher on, get your voice on, get that little bit of stubbornness in you to get it done. And maybe you'll have this. Now, I pulled those stones totally without even looking at them because I have not touched these stones in about a year.
But just like we were talking last week with tarot, that's how readings work. It's just whatever we need to know right now, the universe, God, goddess, spirit, whatever your thing is,
Now, these feel like a stone, but I'll bet you if you got the clay and you laid the clay out, you could do the same thing with it.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
About this with the kids, this would be something awesome to do with the kids.
You can get, you can go to Joann's or Michael's. You can get the what is it, like the polymer clay? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can make little discs out of it. You can get like a little toothpick and you can etch the runes in. I mean, there's so many different things you could do.
And what better way to give your knowledge of what you've done to your children and let them understand, because there's a lot of things nowadays. Everything is YouTubed or you can buy everything. You can buy it. You can buy it. You can buy it. Our path actually tells you to make things. It tells you to sit.
You have a whole order of artificers for crafting and stuff like that.
Yeah, you make the things because you put your energy in it.
Right.
And all of the stuff that's not perfect in it is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Because we're not perfect. So to me, something like that, this is really interesting. The figures you can saw were not, elaborately drawn. They were very, very simple figures. You can do anything like that. Take symbols. You can take the symbols from Wicca and turning it in. If you pick that symbol, what does that symbol mean? And how is it in your life? Just like we just pulled those. We had the teacher. This show does a lot of teaching. I know I hear it from a lot of people that say, wow, I didn't know that, and I heard it on your show. Exactly. And we do our research, and that's one of our big stubborn parts. We're not going to give on that part because if we're going to give you information.
We don't know everything. Yeah.
Now, and if we're going to give the information, we're going to make sure we're giving as correct as we can, what we have. So, that's kind of where we're at, and we're giving our voice. I mean, if you don't teach your children, somebody else will. So let's get our children together and let's start teaching these things to them.
And also, it's interesting that one rune was about ego, because we have said before on the show, we are firm believers. No matter what titles, degrees, or whatever we have in the tradition or anywhere else in the community, we are always learning. And to think that we know everything, obviously, you need to do some checking
shadow work.
Yeah. You need to go back and listen to our shadow work episode if that's the case.
We're going to have a shadow work episode. But it was just interesting.
We'll have more than one.
Yes.
We've done one, so
That'll
check
work.
that out. Hmm.
But this is kind of a way to teach. And the runes I thought are tarot is a little bit older usually for children, mid-teens or, a little adolescence because the younger kids can't do it. But those younger kids can do the runes because
Yes.
they can draw on themselves. You can do it on polymer. You can do it on, if someone will cut up a
Anything.
limb for you, you can use
I have
crayon.
a necklace with a rune on it. Yeah, you can do anything. And the thing is I don't think we touched on it too much. So we talked about the Elder Futhark alphabet, but if you go in and look at these books, each one, although it's a letter in the alphabet, each one has a different description. So you're talking about tarot, like one card will mean a certain thing. So when after you learn it, obviously, and get used to it, after a while that when you pull this, that it means something specific in your, you know, like, okay, this is red hoe is a symbol of travel, usually for pleasure. So if you pull this, you're going on a vacation, basically.
There you go. Even if it's a staycation, you're going
Right.
to do something. But this is a great way for you to expand your knowledge. Pick
Yes.
up the runes. You can, like I said, if you don't want to buy a set, go make a set. It doesn't
Yeah.
cost you but the nail polish. And if you already have it, like most of us do, you've got it. All you got to do is go out and get your rocks off the ground. So
Yeah.
it's an easy way to learn another form of divination. And again, we're watching our pocketbooks because you do not have to be rich to be a witch,
No.
even though they'll
Oh,
tell you that. They will
I
sell
like
you
that.
anything.
You rhymed. I like that.
Oh, rich to be a witch. Don't you love that?
I
See,
do.
that's where you learn how to do your
Jingle.
spell.
There you
David
go.
Rhyme. So, you can make a lot of things. Our corelliums were made for us by Reverend Corey, who put all of her love and her gift into it. So she put her energy in it for
Right.
me. She made it for me. So while she's making it, she's thinking of me as she's drawing it and coloring it in. So it meant so much more to me than if you would have bought me something and mailed it to me. But
Right.
it
Right.
it means that much. So when you're working with your kids, and again, we're moms, grandmoms, and great grandmoms. So let's kind of start thinking about, our path is so wonderful and it's so powerful, but how often have you shared it with your children?
Right. Exactly.
And with the little guys, there's a lot that they do not understand, and there's a lot of easy ways to ease them into it. And if you have ever been to Sunday school and you know how they do coloring, and you talk
Hmm.
about while you're coloring, well, that is no different than making the runes and talking about them as you're doing it. When you're doing a craft, you're feeling, you're seeing, you're hearing. Those are the
Yep.
three abilities that you need to learn. And
And
everybody learns a
also,
different way.
yes, and also just a quick plug. So if you go, one of my favorites as a pagan parent is littlepaganacorns.com. They have crossword puzzles, word puzzles. They have lap books that you can make out of with like a manila folder. They have the little fortune telling thing. They have a little tarot, I think it's like 10 cards or something that you can print out as a coloring page. They have different things. They have a lesson. I mean, and it goes for older kids too, but just to your point, there are a lot of good resources out there that help you get involved and hands
Yeah.
on to help you teach your children.
Another one is the puka pages. They've been around
Yes.
forever.
Oh my gosh, Haley was mentioned in the birthday section one year, and she was
Oh,
like, because if you're in the Puka Pages group, every now and then she'll post, okay, his birthdays are going to be going out for the next, and so for the next cycle. And I was able to get her, I think she was like 8 or 9. But yeah, to see that when the kids see their names printed in something, it's like a huge deal,
it really
especially.
is. It means that much to you. So
Yeah.
start looking at some of your resources. I mean, when my children were little, it was quite a number of years ago, it was difficult because there wasn't a lot out there for children. There wasn't a lot out there for adults, basically.
Yeah.
You were on
Right.
your own. And
Mhm.
now it's becoming more normal and it's becoming like people are now understanding. Yeah, we need the stuff for the little guys too, because if you don't start them now, someone else is going to start them.
Right.
So you have to decide. And I've always said forever that children need some sort of spiritual life, of some path in their life to get them started. It will give them that pause. It might give them that second thought before they do something totally
Hmm.
stupid, which we all do. It's how we
Right.
learn. But it will give them that little bit of strength, that little bit of hope, that little bit of solid foundation that they
Right.
have, that it's not shakable. Their world gets
Well,
turned upside down every day.
and also, I think just like us, it's also for like us as adults, it's also a sense of community. Like whenever, like Haley's probably the only Wiccan in her school, and she's gotten bullied about, wearing her pentacle stuff and it being a devil, but she still wears it no matter what. But like I have to share this really quick. So last night we went to a drum circle and I took the kids for the first time. And well, for the first time at this place. They've been growing up in drum circles with CLT, but um she before we were leaving, she was like, "Oh, why is Dad coming?" And I was like, "No," because he was hanging out doing stuff at the house. And I was like, "No," and she goes, "Oh, it's because he's not a witch like us, but that's okay. We still like him anyway." I was just like, out of the mouths of babes. It's
And
just like, but
children,
she knows that, but she makes that connection of drumming being a
it's a
spiritual
spiritual
thing,
thing.
and she's only 4,
You
so
know,
it's like,
it's amazing how much they absorb. They're
oh
like
yeah,
little sponges. So if you
right.
don't start feeding that sponge what you want it to know, it's going to suck up something else that you may not want them to know.
Right.
There was a story, there was a book out. No, it was a short story. It was in I think it was in Sage Woman magazine, where it was written from a pagan child's perspective of a Christian child's home.
Oh,
Neighbor moved
interesting.
in, and she went over to greet the neighbor and took the neighbor an offering, and the neighbor was Christian, and they had a Christian child, and she was, as a pagan, describing some of the items in the house, and some of them were
Right.
religious items, and it was like, oh, that's scary, oh, that's frightening. And it gave you pause to listen to what she was saying.
Right.
And it's interesting if you see it, like we've always seen it. Most of us were raised Christian of some sort, or Jewish, or one of the basic mainstream religions, and
Right.
then we were introduced usually as older children or adults into paganism, so we've already had that background. So to
Mhm.
us, those symbols are, you're used to seeing a crucifix.
Right.
It's
Right.
not scary to us because I was raised Catholic, so they were in my house, they were over my bed. um, but when you
Unless
hear,
you relate it to The Exorcist or something, then
right,
it
but
might be.
if you're looking at it with a small child, a child was describing,
Right.
there was this horrible picture of this poor person. They had blood on them, and it was really scary, mommy. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Now, because I grew up in the atmosphere I did, it was an acceptable symbol. It
Right.
was
Right.
a beloved symbol,
Mhm.
where I'm looking and the child's going, well, how come it's not like our goddess who, is beautiful? I'm looking, my goddess is sitting over there, or um, our symbols are earth and fire and water and air, and they're very, natural symbols. This symbol was very confusing to the child, and the child didn't understand. So the
Yeah.
pagan child was asking the pagan parent and explaining to the pagan parent that it frightened her. And
Mhm.
the mother was being very reassuring. The pagan mother was explaining that's part of their faith. You
Right.
honor it, and explained a little bit about it. And I thought, wow, the reverse has been true so many times, where we've explained our pagan symbols to our children when they
Hmm.
thought they were a little weird or off
Weird.
or something
Right.
like that. So I really impress upon people, if you want your family to be pagan, then you have to be pagan. You have to make a decision. Just like when you have your child, You decide their name. You decide their religion because you're either going to do a baptism, wicketing, or whatever.
Right.
You got to start making those decisions. And it's very easy for us as adults to say, yeah, I'm pagan. But now you've got children, and how are you going to adjust your lifestyle and your religion with your
Right.
children? Now,
Yeah,
paganism
and
is kind of
that's
a path.
you're right. And that's, yeah, and like for us, we let them choose whatever they want. And Haley and Fiona just naturally gravitated toward, Wiccan by seeing me and what I do. And Erica, not so much. I mean, she looked into Buddhism for a little while, and she's pretty much agnostic. I mean, she could care, one way or the other. She just doesn't.
Right.
Which is
But as
cool.
smaller children, you want to give them a background and a basis.
Oh, sure.
And that can be really tough sometimes because if they're going to be different, and I really sympathize with a lot of the Jewish families who put their children into public schools because their holidays are different.
Yeah.
They get different times off from school. Anybody that has a different path, and now that the schools are more integrated, it's a little bit more understandable because you do talk about different things. But
Right.
as much as the schools integrate, none of them cover paganism.
Nope.
My son, bless his little heart, as we say in the South, was going to an Episcopalian school, which was a very good school, and he was getting a very good education. He was pagan at home. And when the school would have their little, religious stuff like that, they always gave them the option. If that's not your faith, and you can go over here. So he would take his pagan books, and do his thing. And
Right.
um, they were going through the different religions. They were studying, I think it's like in eighth grade. So they were studying different comparative religions. And my son was very disappointed. And at the end of the class, he walked up to the instructor and said to his teacher very clearly, because I got the phone call, I noticed you covered everything but paganism.
Nice.
And the teacher was like, well, that's real. And he goes, it's a real religion.
Oh, yeah.
And she's saying, well, he goes, because I practice it.
Right. Right.
And the teacher was like, oh, crap.
Right. Yeah,
And
and there's of course several variations of paganism, but like in the United States, Wicca is recognized now as a religion. But yeah, I mean, there's not even for work. I have to take a vacation or a sick day if it's available. To get my holidays, my Sabbaths off. So
actually, we'll talk about that under
we'll talk about that
law. That's
a
coming up.
different one.
But it was interesting in eighth grade that he had the fortitude to walk up to the instructor and
Right.
say, how come you're not covering my religion? So
Correct.
I get a phone call. The instructor was a little hesitant to call me. I guess they thought I was going to look like this, green.
Right.
So I got the phone call, and I said, well, do you want to meet in person? And they said, well, we'd rather do a parent teacher conference because I'm was taken aback by what your son said. And I'm like, okay, fine, no problem. So I went to meet the instructor, and the instructor was at first very cautious because they are in Episcopalian
Right.
environment.
Mhm.
So I'm bringing in a whole new element. But like I explained to her, I said, you do have Jewish children in your school, don't you? She's like,
Right.
oh, of course we do. And you have Indian from India children in your school, do you not? She's like, yes, we do. I said, so what's the problem with a pagan child?
Yeah.
And she looked at me and I said, the problem is that you have the problem.
Right.
Obviously, my son noticed it was missing. He felt left out
Yeah.
because you didn't include him in the discussion. Now, I don't know how the discussion went because I know what my son came home and told me was one way, but I know it went another way because just how children tell you things, they
Right.
put their spin on it. So I
Mhm.
said, you didn't include him. He felt excluded and he didn't like that. And I think that maybe I can give you some pointers, and I can start you on give you a booklet or something to read so that you can understand it better, so that you're better able to handle
Right.
this with the next child. I said, it's becoming a very large religion now. And I mean, it's something that you need to look at. And when I say religion because that's how people understand it better. If I
Right,
say
right,
spiritual path, a lot of people that are not on a spiritual path, that are religious, don't understand what we're
right.
talking about. We don't have
Mhm.
a lot of the dogma and all that stuff with it. But it was interesting that the instructor had no background in that. And I'm like, but you handled the Indian child, you handled the Jewish child. They even did an agnostic. And I said, and
Um,
my son can name off about 50 gods and goddesses. So trust and believe
mhm.
that we believe in God, because that was her first question.
Yeah.
And I was
Well,
like,
yeah, that's
which one?
really, yeah, that's really interesting. But it was such a fun show tonight, and I'm so excited about Pam's tea leaf reading for the first time on air. Once again, our keyword is tea leaves and tea time MC with, I'm sorry, teatimemc@gmail.com. And you also need to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tea Time with Mother and Crone, and click the little bell button so you get notified when we go live. And next week, we will be covering a more divination, if you can believe that or not.
And next week, it's going to be a very interesting show because we're going to cover a few things that you might not have heard about before. So this is a teaching moment. Um,
Yes.
and from my understanding, our show is going into little minute TikToks.
It may eventually. We're going to get more information about that. You
Yeah,
may be seeing us on TikTok in the future, people. So little.
but we are on. Is it called Apple Tunes, iTunes? What's it called? I'm an
It's.
Android user. Okay.
I know. I know. I won't hold it against you. Um, so we're on the Witch School channel. Our episodes can be found on Witch School on iTunes. I believe there's a few other platforms, but under the Witch School channel, you'll find our episodes for Tea Time, along with many other shows in the Carillion tradition. And um, I mean,
We
it's
have a lot of wonderful shows, and a lot of the shows are educational. They cover a lot of different stuff.
yeah.
I would recommend, if you do have children and you are stuck and are not sure where you're going and how you need, if you need a little help,
Mm-hmm.
ping us, email us, go on our Facebook, ask questions.
Post on the page, yeah, anything.
I've raised my children already. I have 4 generations now that are witches under me.
Yeah,
So my daughter raised her 2 daughters, and they're now raising my great grandson, and they're all pagan.
yeah,
So there it is out there. You can do it. My daughter had a much easier time with her girls because, again, she's younger than me, and now I have an 8-year-old great grandson that, it's easy now
yeah.
comparatively than it was. My daughter just turned the big 50.
Mhm.
So, when she was growing up, it was very difficult. There was very little out there.
Right.
We basically, it was, pulling it out your rear end, basically, because there was no other way to do it. So now that we've got so many helps out there, I really encourage you. But if you are having issues, or you're not sure which way to turn, or you have questions, you can send them in to us. We'll help you the best way we know how. There's a
Yeah.
lot of videos that we have in the Carillion tradition on Magic TV that goes over a gazillion different
Yes.
topics. I
It's a
know
great, great
Reverend
resource.
Tim alone has
Yeah,
what?
a lot. And Lord Don's vlogs. I mean, ugh, so much information. It's really great
So
stuff.
it's, and a lot of it you can break down for your kids. So I mean, it's a lot of learning. And if nothing else, the rituals are being done on virtual circle. You can
Mhm.
go to the Magic TV and pull down whatever ritual you need. If you go
Yep.
on the Facebook page for virtual circle, all the rituals are in there. So we're trying to get out as much as we can for you guys. So, but if you do have questions, or you're not sure how to handle something, or you just want to see a little bit more fun on the show, send
Mhm.
us a line. I mean, I really want to thank about the Jasmine tea. That was interesting that they asked us
Yeah.
to do Jasmine. And where did that come from again? That was from.
Nickery in Canada.
In Canada. So Canada's actually why that's interesting to me to see who watches our show and
Yes.
how far out it gets. So thank you from Canada for the suggestion of the tea. And if anybody else has a suggestion, or if you know of a certain tea, kind of tea, or you put something in it, like um,
Or something native
lilac.
to your area that may not be as common, or some, or any tea traditions from your culture. That would
I
be
mean,
cool.
we're willing to listen and put them on the show. We'll give you credit for it. You get to hear your name on the show, which is everybody gets excited about that.
Right.
So check into us, check on our different sites, look at the information that's handed out. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. We will try to answer them the best we can. If we don't know, we
We'll
will be
find.
checking it out.
Yeah, we will find out for
Because
you.
trust me, half of this stuff we don't know anyway. So we're finding it out as we come on the show.
Or we're learning. I mean, like we said earlier, we're always learning.
We're
There's things
always
that we don't
learning.
have. That's right.
Was a new experience for this old crone. So, never be ashamed to say, I don't know, but always say, I don't know, but I will find out.
Exactly.
So, great show tonight. We look forward to next week where we're going to talk some witchy divination coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be doing some
Awesome.
interviews. And there's a couple different, we're going to be able to tell you next week some of the different shows that we've been asked to attend
Yeah.
so that you're going to see us in a little bit different light instead of us being quiet, us giving you all the answers. We're going to be questioned. So this ought to be an
Yeah.
interesting time. So we're going to give you all the ins and outs on that one. It's also going to, everything that we do is on our Facebook page. So give us a
Yes.
holler out there.
Yeah. And we're also on the Witch School page and again, YouTube. Go like and subscribe. Thank you all for your support, and we will see you next week.
See you guys next week.